I have a very exciting speaker for you today, Connie Chan, who represents District 1 here in San Francisco. That's the Richmond, will be speaking. Before we do that, just a couple of housekeeping things and announcements. So if you haven't been to UUSF before, just know that the bathroom is just around the corner. And if you didn't learn about this from our newsletter and you'd like to receive those, we have a sign-up sheet on the table over there. So you can just put your name and address, email address clearly printed over there, and we'll start sending you 1 or 2 emails a week. I want to tell you how we do Q&A here. So we like to have people write their questions on the cards that you'll find in all the tables and the chairs and so on. And then we'll ask the questions of Connie Chan at the end of her talk, which will come at around 10:15 or so. So then a couple of other things that are coming up I want to tell you about here in this room today at 12:30, because this is MLK Sunday. We have a session that's emphasizing his connections to the labor movement, and this is co-produced with the labor union that's located right across the street from us here. So the title of this is a tribute to MLK, an afternoon of introductions, and we'll be watching a river called At the River I Stand. I learned about this. I went to the MLK Museum in Memphis this year and learned about how he was in Memphis when he was assassinated because he was there to participate in a strike of the sanitation workers. So that's some very important history we'll be learning more about today. Also, on Wednesday, the 28th, the Human Rights Working Group, and especially Bruce, who's here in the room, has organized a kind of a vigil and event to show solidarity with the protesters in Iran. So our weekly Wednesday morning vigil on the steps of the church here from 8 to 9 will be dedicated to Iran that week. And then at 6 p.m., we have is it a film, Bruce? Yeah, a film here in this room on the 28th. Next Sunday, we have another forum, and we'll be having Frances Aubrey. And she is a Unitarian who has written a book, and it's something about the trauma she experienced as a young person and how she overcame it, and something like a grandmother's wisdom. I think it'll be a really great session. I was really interested when I read the summary of the book and what she wanted to say. And then on the 8th of February, we will have Katia Padilla, who is here today, and she is with the Latino Task Force, and she'll be telling us about the great work that her group does. Many of you, or some of you at least, probably attended the event that was held at St. Mark's across the street over here a couple of months ago. That was produced by the Latino Task Force, right? So we'll be learning a whole bunch more about the Latino Task Force then. So that does it for announcements. Now we'll have our Ohlone land recognition. Would you come up, please, Willard?
Good morning, everyone. We, the members, the First Unitarian Church, acknowledge that our community is located on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone tribe, the original inhabitants of the San Francisco Peninsula. We recognize that we benefit from living and working here, and we affirm their sovereign rights as First People. Again, it's really important that we acknowledge that we're in this space and the ancestral land, the Ohlone people. But what's really important is that the descendants of the Ohlone people are still here. And there's all sorts of cultural and program events you can learn more about the Ohlone people. And I just want to highlight that this coming Thursday on January 22nd, our own North Beach Library is having an event called an afternoon with Cafe Ohlone. Join Cafe Ohlone co-founders Vincent Medina and Luis Trevino to hear about the role of food in Ohlone culture, past and present. A light snack and tea tasting. Reservation is required because space is very limited. North Beach Library, 415-355-5626. Again, it's a chance just to learn about the vibrant and the current, culture of that community is still thriving. So by all means, And if in fact this event sold out, it's going to be repeated, in other libraries. Again, January 22nd. And I have this, if you want to put it in the chat, I can give this information to you. I'll probably be making other future announcements about great, wonderful events. So please, stay tuned.
Okay, we are very honored today to have Connie Chan, who is representing District 1 in San Francisco for about 5 years, I think now. And she is also running for Congress for District 11, the seat that is held today by Nancy Pelosi. I believe she'll give us a little bit of her story and her origins and things like that. But I want to tell you that I learned that she was a tenants' right organizer in Chinatown. So that might inform a little bit her approach to some of the issues that are so much challenging the country today. Um, anyway, so with that, I'll welcome Connie to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you so much and happy Sunday. It is good to be with all of you. And it is also quite an honor to speak with you today, a day before the Martin Luther King Day, a date of service for many, and to remember many things that not only that he had done for us for the entire country across, but really created a movement that's still going on today. And I really do believe that movement is still going very strong today. Um, and for that, I'm grateful and that to be part of that continuing movement. Um, my name is Connie Chan, and I am currently a member of the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. It is, like Jeff said, that I'm on my fifth year. I've been reelected in 2024. On this, in last November, when Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi announced that she wasn't going to seek re-election, I think many of us in this time particularly had a sense of loss. And that's myself included in thinking, what's next for San Francisco, not just for San Francisco, but really for California and really across the nation in the time of Trump administration. And that was a moment where I talked to many different stakeholders and thinking about what's next for us in San Francisco for the people's movement. And in that moment, we decided to jump in and run for Congress. And I want to be clear about this, that since the day that Trump took office again in 2025, many people, working people, have been under attack, be it from the federal worker, be it from the immigrant community and the LGBTQ community, all across the nation have been under attack. And 2025 was really a critical year for many of us to recognize that Trump administration, unlike anything we have seen in 2016, much, much worse. And this is a moment that we must all stand up and fight back. There's no other choice but to do that. For far too long in San Francisco, we've been a great city. We've been a sanctuary city. And when we think about immigration policy, we think of it as more of a bordering state issue. That we understand, there's a lot about deportation, asylum, but we know that we do this well. We are a sanctuary city in San Francisco, but it's no longer so in the year of 2025. We see that Trump administration sent ICE to our streets to terrorize people and violating their due process. And now the latest, we see that also violating the First Amendment rights of its very own citizen for peaceful protest. This is not acceptable. During the first week of Trump administration, the first thing that he did was to try to take away birthright citizenship. And just about a month ago, he announced that his administration is going to try to take away naturalized citizenship. And that means it impacts people like me. I am a first generation immigrant. I came to San Francisco's Chinatown with my single mom and a younger brother. That's me and my family. And Trump administration wants to take all those things away. In Congress, This is why we must fight back and push back. We need to affirm birthright citizenship. We need to protect those who are naturalized citizens. We need to invest, like we do in San Francisco, a pathway to citizenship. More than 15% of immigrant community across the nation, as I have learned, are actually eligible to be able to take on the pathway to citizenship. And yet they don't have the legal knowledge and supports and resources to help them get on that pathway. In San Francisco, we do. We provide that. And we need to make sure that when we're in Congress, we provide that too. It's a humanitarian crisis when we see our immigrants community under attack. And it is a time that I think we need to bring that tenacity and that fighting spirit and that compassionate kindness and gestures and approach from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. But I also want to talk about what has been under attack in 2025. Broadly, it's really healthcare. Healthcare, I believe, fundamentally is human rights. There's no reason for United States, one of the wealthiest countries in the world, not care for its people, and making sure that we're healthy and that we are thriving. And we know that this can be, and it is a bipartisan issue because we see that in Congress right now, that it's late, that they have decided and they understand they need to extend the premium subsidy for Medicaid. It is critical that not only that we restore the Medicaid cuts, we need to push and expand the to expand the Medicaid. That makes sure that not only is Medicare for all, but more for Medicare. In San Francisco, as your budget committee chair, thanks to Mayor Lurie and work with my colleagues on the board, supervisors, together we have put $400 million on reserve to make sure that we can fend off against those Trump Medicaid cuts. But let me be clear, it is not enough because in one single year, San Francisco received more than $1 billion of Medicaid funding. So we know $400 million is enough. It's not enough to fend off. This is the reason why in Congress, we have to not only restore those cuts, we need to expand Medicaid, expand Affordable Health Care Act, expand Medicare for all. It is the right thing to do. It is not last and not least of things that we want to do in Congress, but it's the last thing that I want to mention so that we can open up for a conversation. Trump has been destroying our future in so many ways, be it climate initiatives, be it our human rights issue, civil rights issue. But there's one critical thing that he has been doing that destroying really fundamentally not only the future of United States, but the future of our world, is that he has been actively dismantling the Department of Environment, the Department of Education. Taking away funding for our education, taking the funding away from our education, meaning he's taking the investment for our future. And this is most critical in a sense where if we want to see a better future for all of us, if we do all believe that no one should be stuck in jail and that no one and everyone should deserve a chance for a better future, if we believe that no one should stuck in our social welfare system and not being able to be on a pathway to build middle class and have a better future and have better jobs, then we must invest in education. This is why in San Francisco, we are doing this very well. We fund affordable childcare. We fund our K through 12 classroom. In addition to the state funding, in San Francisco, we have what we call a student success as well as public education enrichment fund, all from all of you here contributing to that to make sure that there are additional funding to the state funding to fund our K through 12 classrooms. There's this one great thing that I personally really believe it, be it for lifelong learners or be it for our high school graduates or for someone that wants to have a better job, free city college. As long as you as long as you live in San Francisco, you can sign up for City College of San Francisco. you will have free tuition to better yourself and better your future. And that is an opportunity that every American deserves. And this is what we want to do we're in Congress. We want to make sure there's funding for affordable childcare. We want to have funding for K through 12 classrooms, and we want to be able to have funding for free community colleges, not just for San Francisco or state of California. We want to have that throughout United States. Because look, the reality is, let me make sure that I do that analogy right or say that analogy right. I think that is the rising wave floats all boat, or rising tide floats all boats. And that is fundamentally that I believe that when we are all doing well, then when one of us is hurt, then none of us are doing well. And that is a goal that we need to continue to strike to so that we are all doing well. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to having a dialogue today and answer more of your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Connie. We have a couple of questions so far, but could you just tell us a little bit more about your story, how you came into politics, how you came to the United States even? You mentioned that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking my personal story. I really appreciate it. I was born in Hong Kong, and I had my grade school in Taiwan. My single mom and younger brother came to San Francisco's Chinatown, where my aunt and uncle lived. And this is where we end up staying and take root. My mom, my late mother, was amazing. She, as a single mom, she decided to took, two of her teenage kids, took us here. We didn't speak a word of English. I didn't speak a word of English, but my mom was brave enough to say, we're going to be here. And so she learned English in computer class in City College of San Francisco. And that's how she got her first job at Chinese Hospital as a insurance claim processor. And my brother and I attended Galileo High School. I went to UC Davis, and I was joking, Graham, who's on our team, that, many of you probably don't know what I study undergrad. At UC Davis, I study religious studies, which is really a comparative religion, and just learning different religions and classical Chinese. And so I came back to San Francisco, and my mother was like, what are you going to be? You're going to be a nun? Like, what's happening with your major? And I was like, no, Mom, I don't know yet. And what happened was, and that was really the key for me. I decided that I want to have a job that I can be driven to and wake up and feel excited about. And I was like, what was my skill? As you can imagine, religious study and classical Chinese, as it turns out, really is, able to translate, interpret in Chinese and English. And so my first job was a volunteer. Well, it's not really a job, like I wasn't paid, but that was what got me hooked. A volunteer for pro bono tenants attorney for the San Francisco Bar Association. And if I may take this 1 second to tell the story, and I'm going to end this with that one story and why I end up embarking on a career, a lifetime of public service. I was sitting in this room, and there's an arbitrator and a landlord and a pro bono attorney and a monolingual family in Chinatown, and that the landlord is alleging that this tenant is subleasing to another tenant illegally. And the tenant is saying like, no, like, this is my brother. Like, this is my brother. This is my family. And my family is living in this tiny units, by the way. And they were going back and forth, and the landlord is like, you don't have paperwork to prove this is your brother. And like, this cannot be, this is fraudulent. And so there's a lot of, my job was really just translating word for word and interpreting word for word. But at some point, I said to the pro bono tenant's attorney is that, may I just explain something? I think I understand. And may I ask some questions to the tenants on my own and help me understand what has happened here is that. So he said, go ahead, because we're not going anywhere, apparently, with this thing, with this case. And so I asked the questions. I said, is it that you're from the same village? Why do you think this is your brother? And he's like, we're from the same village. You understand this. If we're from the same village, we're family. And this is my family. And he came here, and so I need to help him because he is family. And so that he can, take roots here. And so I turn back to the pro bono attorney and say, this is a cultural dynamic here, if I may interpret back. And he said, go ahead. And I think that that was a moment that I was hooked. And the case was resolved, and that the arbitrator said this is not intentionally fraudulent case, and they didn't try to illegal subleasing it. It's truly a cultural misunderstanding. And I was hooked since then, and believing in that a career public service, that I can do that work. And be it even it's not a language or cultural barriers, there are many other barriers, like be it with racism, sexism, classism, that I think that I learned to be an interpreter and a translator for the people that need to have a voice at a table. So thank you.
I believe you're on the budget committee here in City of, I think we'll probably have some questions about what your priorities are for the city's budget. The first question I have, however, is how important are the two tax measures in SF and California to tax higher income and the wealthy? Please cite the impact of HR1 on the federal level.
Yeah. And, I think that there is two tax measure collecting signature on a state level and then also on a local level. And the local level is the overpay CEO tax. And that means that if there is an executive officer, a CEO, it's being overpaid, then the medium, not just the lowest pay, is the medium income employee 100 times and over. And you may be surprised, or maybe you're not. There are a lot of them in San Francisco are actually being overpaid than the median income of an employee of their company. And there are a lot of them that should actually pay their fair share. And for the statewide is that there's a one-time 5% of tax for billionaires living in California. And that is also being collected. I do believe in wealth tax. I think that this is a moment that we ought to talk about progressive taxation. Progressive taxation help us rebuild the middle class. For far too long, the middle class has been squeezed. And I think that that is really the case in San Francisco. San Francisco voters are very generous. They want to help the most vulnerable. And you see that in many taxation that we do. And I want to shout out this, what we call our city, our home, which is Proposition C in 2018. And what it does is it's a gross receipts tax for any business that are generating $50 million or more. Then we set aside that money for the most vulnerable and for the homeless population. I think that's a great taxation structure as we move forward. Because what happened here is that instead of taxing our middle class and making everybody pay in this sense, we're making the wealthiest pay for the most vulnerable. And that is why I believe in progressive taxation. And this is also why that we oftentimes hear the threats that the billionaires say, well, California and San Francisco, screw you. I'm going to go to, Texas or Florida because they won't tax me there. It's the reason why I believe in Congress, we must push to make sure they do not get away their responsibility to pay their fair share. Billionaires pay less federal taxes than our teachers, our nurses, our first responder. That is not right. We have to make sure that they pay their fair share in Congress so that they do pay their fair share, not just in California, but in every state in the United States.
We have quite a few questions now that relate to things like ICE, immigration enforcement, what many of us believe is actually fascism happening now, and
Correct.
things like that. The question is, how prepared is San Francisco for the kind of frontal attacks we're seeing in Minnesota? What should SF be doing now?
What ICE is doing in Minnesota is inhumane, and it's a violation of due process and First Amendment. Congress right now must act on the spending bill to withhold funding for ICE until an independent investigation is completed. And with that, to make sure that this is a law enforcement agency that actually follow the law. It cannot have armed ICE agent unleashed on our streets, sending terrors and violence on our own community, be it immigrants, undocumented, or our own citizen. That is a problem. And we must to encourage and make sure that Congress hold their line to withhold that funding and until not just the investigation, but that they start to abide by the law before they release any funding for the Department of Homeland Security. In San Francisco, I want to say we are prepared. Our elected official is prepared. We've been long prepared thanks to our city attorney. And then we're in California. I would want to also say that we are prepared thanks to our Attorney General Rob Bonta. City Attorney David Chu and Attorney General Rob Bonta has been very successful in the court to push back Trump administration's deployments, be it National Guard, and really containing ICE in the area, not on our public spaces. And that my colleagues, Supervisor Bilal Mahmoud, as well as I know that as recently as Alameda and in some other cities are now actually, let's just say, and push forward what we call a ICE-only zone. We are containing ICE operation and activities in the boundary of our city, and that's what we are going to do.
What is your position on funding ICE and disarming and unmasking ICE?
I think I kind of answered that. So I'm going to say, we got to withhold that funding. Absolutely no reason. Our law enforcement, since their establishment, any kind of law enforcement has never, needing to be masked in order to carry out their duties. And therefore, there's no reason now that they must. In fact, we should all know that there's additional penalty for the public to be masked. And when we're doing protests and others activities, and therefore, there's no reason for them to be masked.
Do you believe that the current Democratic Party leadership is effective in fighting the Trump initiatives? If not, what needs to change?
I think that right now, the moments that the loss that we suffer in 2024, it's a learned lesson for all of us that we actually have to focus. We can fight Trump. At the same time, we must deliver for the American people. And we have to focus on that kitchen table issues. And that means healthcare, education, immigration policy. Those are things that we have to deliver for the American people. The cost of living is way too high, not just in San Francisco, but really across the nation. And those are the things that Democrats need to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. We have to be able to, if we want to impeach Trump and move that forward, we need to be able to do so. But at the same time, we need to be able to also fight in the spending bill to deliver spending that works for the American people.
Do you consider yourself to be a regular Democrat or a quote unquote new Democrat like Zohran Mamdani? Do you like Zohran Mamdani?
I would say in San Francisco for many, we do have this moderate. I would say San Francisco Democrats are just like a breed of our own. How about that? I don't even think we're the same as New York. And within San Francisco, the Democrats, like who is bluer, is it's a real competition. So I would say there are folks. I wouldn't want it to be a cell label, but I think there are folks that really consistently put me as a progressive Democrat in San Francisco, and I think that's already tell you a lot.
By what mechanism can the people of the U.S. remove from office an elected president?
Besides impeachment, yeah, and vote them out. And if I may do a quick pitch for. We have to make sure that we all turn out for 2026. There is a primary. If you know anybody in the states of California, we just passed Prop 50, and I am being bipartisan here, and to just but no matter what is to vote primary and vote November. And I think that the election does have consequences, and it could bring us good consequences too. So I really urge everyone to vote.
Here's a local question. In District 1, we have had multiple power outages recently. PG&E is operating illegally in violation of the Hatch Act. How can we make power a public utility that is more reliable and not for profit?
Hatch and Raker, Raker Act, Hatch Act. It's like you're not allowed to campaign and at the White House. Raker's Act, and both are not good anyways. So when you violate it, and for PG&E. Well, first of all, I think that what we have done when it happened in the Richmond, we know that the first thing that we have to do is take care our seniors and people with disabilities who cannot get out of their house. And so what can we do? We have a phone tree to trying to reach them, but it has its limitation. And I am very disappointed in the PG&E aftermath. And there's a lot of questions about how they have been maintaining the system, whether it has been good maintenance that, and appropriate investments to make sure that it didn't. Why did it lead to the fire at the substation? There are many, many questions. So hearing to come. I do believe that PG&E, because of its monopoly, we need to enforce the Rakers Act, that we need to make sure, look, it's a monopoly, and so that they can continue to increase our utility bills and still get away with delivering reliable and safe energy. And this is why that governor, we are urging the governor and we're urging his office of Office of Energy to really not issue the safety certificates to PG&E until they answer all those questions. And that's part of the ways, like a state approach to enforce the Rakers Act. And I think that there's more to come. It's the reason why in Congress, we should tweak certain federal regulation, including for the Federal Energy Regulation Entity, FERC, and to make sure that we can allow a state, California, and a municipality like San Francisco to be able to own its own energy infrastructure.
There are so many things that need to change in Congress, like Citizens United, downsizing the military, election laws, and more. What are the most important items that you would like to work on?
I would like to work on appropriation and because I do believe that budget, as your budget committee chair in San Francisco, I view that very same thing about budget is a statement of our values. And in San Francisco, we make sure that we don't balance our budget on the working people. We make sure that we, no matter with the budget deficits, we do everything possible to have immigration defense fund, to when Trump cuts SNAPs, food security programming, we have funding to ensure that people get their CalFresh. That is what we should do and must do in Congress. And there are two different portions of very similar to San Francisco, but specifically in Congress. And we see that for the Trump administration, that they have push away Congress oversights, and we must continue and push forward for the oversights, how that spending goes, the defense and the non-defense bill. And the non-defense bill is really where Medicaid and so many other programming that we want to see and continue to fund.
Thank you. If you were elected, will you accept money from groups like APAC, that stands for American Israel Public Affairs Committee?
We do not, and it's also on our walk card and campaign material to show, we do not accept any type of funding and from not just the PAC itself, but anyone affiliated with them. APAC, guns, pharmaceutical, fossil fuel, oil, energy. I think I have more, and corporate PAC. So we have a whole list, but right now on top of my brain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Couple more questions on ICE. You may have answered these already, but let's see, just to make sure. One of them says, how would you fight ICE if elected to Congress? What strategies would you take? And the other is, how is it that San Francisco has apparently managed to keep ICE out of the city so far? I'm not sure if that's true. If you were elected, what position would you take on ICE and the current direction of the DHS?
Yeah. Again, similar to what I already think that Congress can be doing, it's to continue. That's why appropriation bills actually do matter. That within that appropriation is to hold contracting agency and also the federal agencies accountable. And that's really what we have to do with appropriation and the spending bill. In San Francisco, you're right. We did not keep ICE off San Francisco. What technically happened was Trump threatened illegally to send National Guards onto our streets, and the court has proved that he cannot deploy National Guards to do local law enforcement duties. So partly that is what the court ruling as well. I do want to credit Mr. Mayor Daniel Lurie, for his conversation with Trump. I think that there's a lot more that I think we all kind of eager to learn about that conversation and what also would be the follow-up from that conversation. We cannot stop a federal agency to be in federal spaces, but I certainly think that we can regulate how federal agencies like ICE and National Guard can behave and carry out their operation.
Thank you. As San Francisco continues to recover from the pandemic downward spiral, how do we ensure that people aren't priced out again? Rents are increasing at an alarming rate compared to last year for residential units.
I do believe there's two things that we in the federal government can do. First is to amend Fair Cloth. It's a Fair Cloth law, and that allowing local municipalities and allowing states to build more affordable housing, and I would identify them as social housing, and expanding rental subsidy like Section 8, and to make sure that there are housing, because right now they are capping the number of units, and therefore they cannot expand to of both the rental subsidies and building the federal subsidized housing. And that's what we have to do. And we also have to preserve the rent control units in San Francisco, and we need to continue to do that. So we do, though, need to build new housing. But I would say that we should prioritize public dollars and public regulations to push and boost affordable housing production. And that's also inclusive of workforce housing for our nurses, our firefighters, police officers, that really so that they can be local and serving the local community in a way that they understand best. I think that when our community are focusing on local, including those serve our city, they will then have better outcome. They understand that the person next door is their neighbors. And that's we want to continue to make sure that the public dollars goes to building a community that will also serve and really love this community.
In California, we understand and value our multicultural population. We need your translator's voice in Congress. My question is, what kind of comrades do you have or plan to make in other states that will grow this belief in multiculturalism?
If you know the Congressional Progressive Caucus, please put in a good word for me. And that is being led by our Congresswoman Jayapal and Congresswoman AOC, and also one of our very own Congresswoman Latifah Simon. That is some of the members on the Progressive Caucus. I really look forward in joining their ranks and being able to be part of the caucus and push some of the agenda forward. And they really have very similar ideas like free community colleges and around Medicare for all. I really am excited about that.
What do you believe is the reason for the closure of the SF Immigration Court, which we learned about this week, I believe?
I feel ambivalent about it. I feel torn about it. On one hand, that because that court is in San Francisco, so we have local resources like lawyers that can show up and to help and provide that legal services for the immigrants that show up in court. And at the same time, that many of us can go in and be court observers and be providing that support as well. And knowing that we are a sanctuary city. So we are not active. We do not allow our law enforcement to provide any assistance in immigration court to the federal agency. And so, in some way, I almost feel fine. I find it comforting that having some of the immigrants coming not just in San Francisco but around the Bay Area to attend the court system there, that we actually have an established immigration system and defense system and rapid response network to support them. So the closure of it is for me that I wish they can be here, because then once they're not here, it's much harder for us to provide it's such a stretch for us to provide that support. On the other hand, that I'm now coming kind of wonder too, is like, did they have decrease of operation, or are they just moving it out of our sites? So I'm worried. I'm worried, and definitely if you have read some of the heartbreaking stories of our immigration judges who got fired, it's a testimony of what the inhumane act that Trump administration is doing right now.
We have a question about public transit in San Francisco. What will you do to bring public transit back to pre-pandemic levels of frequency? And another question is, can you do something about robo-taxis?
Road taxis. I do believe that public transit is public good, and we need to fund it like so, like the way we fund public education and public library. And ideally, I would love to see. I still believe free muni for all. That we should be able to move towards that direction, and that's one of the ways that get people out of their car, and better for our environments and for the future. And this is why in Congress, again, the spending bill should really be able to start thinking about the future of all our cities, and to be able to fund our city transit system, not just for the capital improvements, which is typically what they do. They fund high-speed rail, they fund, stations and infrastructure, which is very important. And we want to continue to fund that. But at some point, we need to start thinking about how do we need to keep transit operates. And there are going to be tax measures before you this fall, and that for us to really think about, be it parcel tax increase or a regional sales tax increase to help fund our public transit. But again, I think that is a moment where I believe in progressive taxation for the future to continue to really be funding our transit system in a much more sustainable and fair manner.
We have a question about the affordable housing crisis. Local, quote unquote, affordable housing is available near here. You must have, it costs $25,000 a year for a one-bedroom apartment. Is this really affordable? I have applied and found this out. Can you change this?
Yes, as mentioned earlier about the fair cloth, and it's to understand that San Francisco Bay Area, not just San Francisco Bay Area and in California, rental subsidies has been very challenging, and it really only because of the federal poverty level. San Francisco, when you make middle income area of the area, you're still considered as low income in San Francisco, but you do not qualify for the federal rental subsidies anymore. And that is what I would say. We need to expand the federal subsidies, not just for poverty level or low income level on federal threshold, but to also expand it into workforce.
Do you think that we can use the 25th Amendment to remove Donald Trump?
We can what?
To remove Donald Trump, the 25th Amendment. I myself am not aware of what the 25th Amendment is, so.
Because his mental incapacity. I think that is it's the reason why I think he keep having all these scans and also all the medical treatments and having the doctors and say he's in great shape. I think that I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if I think that if that would be successful of being able to push that. I think that there will be a lot more have to be a lot more resources and discussion. That's truly out of my preview and authority right at this moment. But I'm kind of eager to learn more about what Democratic Party overall thinks, what we can do in Congress. I do believe this. I do believe that right now, Congress, I think that kind of goes back to a little bit of the few questions before for the Democrats and for Congress. What happened here is in 2025, what we saw is a Congress that have relinquished their authority and their duty to impose oversight on the Trump administration. And that if Congress in 2026 and if Democrats take back the House, that we ought to be able to utilize every tools in our toolbox to enforce oversight of all corner, from spending to active wars and the powers of wars and all across the board. They have not actually at all, in my opinion, push forward oversight over the Trump administration.
Do you consider the USA right now to be a dictatorship? What are the characteristics of a dictatorship?
Oh, absolutely. I think that we are, Trump administration is dismantling every federal agency imagine possible. I think that the so-called Doge Act, like right at the beginning, which then led to 350,000 federal employees. Actually, most of them left on their own course because they said, we don't want to be part of this, is a huge sign for me that we're heading toward that direction. And if I may say that there, be it Venezuela military action that is so casually launched to going after Jerome Powell, our chair of the Federal Reserve. These are all signs of, and dismantling our Department of Education. This is all sign of someone who wants to have a third term and a coup and really take away our democracy. I do not have any doubt about that.
The US is an imperialist country with by far the largest military budget and hundreds of bases around the world. What do you intend to do to end the endless US intervention and wars and bullying of other countries?
I think that right now that Greenland is a very good example. It seems to be so slowly but surely a once again, a bipartisan approach to ringing in the Trump administration. I think that was a good step because then you saw Venezuela was really problematic. I think should be for many of us how the Democrats condemning the action and questioning that action, then where Mike Johnson, the Speaker of Congress, stood and on the platform and defending that action. But I think that Greenland is sort of, we can see we start to see a movement of bipartisanship and recognizing that United States, if continue to act this way, we're literally starting wars everywhere. It threatens not only our national security, it threatens global security. And so, again, Congress must have oversight.
Do you believe that the military budget can be limited? If you were to get a position on the Appropriations Committee, how would you use that to affect the military budgeting?
I absolutely believe that we can limit defense appropriation. It needs to be a bipartisan issue to really reconsidering what the domestic issues that we face today in United States, that people do not have healthcare, people do not have good education, and we got to be able to convince everyone be on board to say we need to shift the spending and prioritize people. If there were any spending overseas, United States must prioritize. This is why USDA, like USAID, like being dismantled as the first department and not being able to send humanitarian aid overseas is a problem. United States should always prioritize aid to other countries and deprioritize military use anywhere and everywhere and prioritize peace and stabilize economic solution to all countries around the globe. And I truly believe that. And I think that there got to be enough of us to say that and repeat and say that and repeat and not just say it, but act when the time comes when it comes to spending.
The next question relates to both foreign policy and human rights. And before I read it, I'd like to mention that this congregation passed a resolution about a year ago called the Apartheid-Free Communities Pledge. So it's a pledge in solidarity with Palestinians. So the question is, should you become a congressperson, what will you do with regard to Gaza, the genocide there, and Israeli apartheid? Do you support the movement for a single state that respects the rights of all people, both Palestinians and Israeli Jews?
I will be immediately a co-sponsor of the Block the Bomb Act, recognizing that this is time to be able to stop the weapons to Israeli government. And it's very critical first step. I also do believe, as I mentioned earlier, that United States needs to prioritize and send humanitarian aid because right now we know that there's actually many other NGOs, many other organizations try to send aid, but it's being blocked. And we have to be able to work with all these organizations and making sure that we continue to support the most vulnerable in Gaza at this moment. And in all foreign policy, I do believe that many should really have dialogues and have those conversations. I encourage the people be able to seek peace and understand that we can and we need to and we have to coexist. And so I'm going to leave it like this for now because I think that the priority has to be block the bomb act and has to be stop the sales of that weapon and has to be prioritizing that aid because without that and without a concrete ceasefire and without those aid, people suffer and there's no conversation about which governments that they can have if they are not even alive. There are more than 70,000 Palestinians died and counting and that has to stop first.
Thank you. Wonderful. How important to you is the UN and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights?
Absolutely, very important. I was so moved that there was a gathering to really read out the rights and section by section. And I think that we ought to do it more and remember it more and not just in words, but to really deliver that into action. And I think that truly should be the guiding principle, not just for myself, but I really look forward to seeing and encouraging more congressional members. And I think the Democrats too, and really like thinking about that to be our guiding principle when we talk about spending bill, when we talk about foreign policy, particularly. So.
Thank you. Someone on Zoom asked about your legislative record because being in Congress is a legislative position. So tell us about legislation you have sponsored and passed.
Wow. So I took office in 2021. In the first, on a local level, the first legislation that we pushed forward during the pandemic, the height of it, is what family-friendly workplace ordinance to ensure that at that time it was only limited for parents to care for their children, that they could have flexible working schedule. We immediately recognizing that there are many people what we used to know as bubbles, that they have to care not just for their kids, but they're for their spouse and their partners and also their parents or just older friends and families within the household that they need to care for, and yet they don't have a flexible working schedule. So started with that. That was sort of just the kickoff of it. We have legislated to support small business. Like we know that there's legacy business already on the books, been around for 30 years and more. We say during the pandemic, we see that it was such a challenge. We want to support business that actually been around, but not as long as 30 years, 15 years and more, so that they can be prioritized for resources, definitely tenants protection has always been some of our top of our agenda. We recognize that tenants should be able to form a union, and that's what the tenants union ordinance is, that tenants can form a unions and collectively bargaining with their landlords. And we extend it and amend it to make sure that additional time for interpretation and requirement for interpretation and translated documents for those who are monolingual tenants as well. So I just naming a few, but this is going to be my 4th year as your budget committee chair. I work with 2 different mayors and 2 different fractional board supervisor. You can say that, like, either is it the moderate majority or the progressive majority. And I, as a budget chair, have worked during the time of recovering from COVID to the Trump administration cuts, and balancing that almost $16 billion budget is probably some of my proudest legislative accomplishment.
Balancing the budget this year will be especially difficult, will it not? I'm hearing about a big deficit.
It's always been a big deficit since I've been a budget chair. I do not see it more difficult on a local level. I do see it more difficult because of Trump. Last year we have done a lot to correct a course to make sure that we bring San Francisco back on track, both in the local economy, but also in budget. We have done a lot of work. And I want to thank stakeholders, community leaders, and labor partners that really trying to figure out how to balance this budget, not on the backs of the working people, but really how do you cut wasteful spending. Right now, though, even though we've been on track because of Trump cuts, as I mentioned earlier, we count on Medicaid funding $1 billion or more just in 1 year. If Trump cuts any more SNAPs, which is the Supplemental Food Assistance Program, or our education or our Medicaid, we're going to be in jeopardy as a city. And so those are my worries. And the priority, again, is what can we do more with less, but also put things on reserve for emergency of Trump cuts.
San Francisco is a city now largely divided between multi-millionaire and corporate interests and the interests of concerns of working people. If elected to Congress, which side would you support? And how would you organize to balance these forces during your campaign?
I think that's a trick question. As you've given me go ahead and do a campaign stump speech. So I would say this. I am probably the only candidate. I am actually not probably. I am the only candidate in running for Congress for San Francisco at this moment that have beat billionaires and their PAC, not once, but twice. And then some with our partners at the ballot box. That's what thank you. That's how I won elected office, with people power, with working people. I do believe that's how I will win the seats of Congress, not because of billionaire and their PACs, but because of the working people in San Francisco.
I think you probably mostly answered this question already, but here goes. You are up against 2 retail politicians, Scott Wiener and Shaikat Chakrabarti. How will you distinguish yourself from them?
I answered that, but let me just say this. I think that probably on a national level, I would say that, Mr. Chakrabarti, as well as Senator Wiener and I, we're going to probably go to the bat for, immigrant community and LGBTQ community on a national level. We're going to, try to really be aligned with some of our policy. But I do believe that really the difference between us, all 3 of us, is that, Mr. Chakrabarti really is focusing on primarying the Democrats and within the Democratic Party. I do believe that Democratic Party is organically going to be the next generation and will be better. But I think that to focus on that is not where I'm coming from. And I think that for State Senator Wiener in his body of work, that oftentimes his solution to many of the problems that we face is the answer is market rate housing development. And I believe with our records is that our agenda has to be working San Franciscan driven at the moment of your needs, our needs, and how do we problem solve it. I believe a representative should be responsive to the constituents' need. And then that agenda, our work should be driven by San Franciscans and not special interests or with special agenda. And I think that's very different and how we're different. But I again am still grateful for many of the work that they have done, even though there are things that we may disagree. But I do believe that there are things that we could agree on.
Our last three questions relate to your campaign. Who's endorsing you?
I am very grateful to, on a local level, I'm very grateful to be able to have, Mayor Willie Brown, Mayor Art Atnos, they're the first two mayors jump on our campaign. I am grateful to have Supervisor Dean Preston, Supervisor Jackie Fielder, Shaman Watton, and Cheyenne Chan joining our campaign. And then, of course, Assembly Member Phil Ting and Tom Amiano also have endorsed our campaign. I know that there are more to come, and and of course, I really am grateful for him. The human rights activist Cleve Jones also have endorsed our campaign, and I'm very, very grateful for that. On a national level, we have two great congresswomen of color, Congresswoman Judy Chu and Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland from Washington State, have endorse our campaign along with Aspire PAC, which is a AAPI congressional PAC. But as I mentioned earlier, if you do know the progressive congressional members, we're definitely actively seeking their endorsement.
Wonderful. By the way, we'll have Supervisor Cheyenne Chan here in April.
Great.
She'll be coming here to speak at forum. Okay. How do some of us donate to your campaign fund? And the second question is, how does one connect with your volunteer coordinator? Where is the campaign office located?
Thank you. That's an amazing question. I rarely get asked of that. I have Graham. Graham, could you wave your hand? Graham is here. It's kind of funny because Graham said, like, hey, here's where, like, he comes here for Seneca, like, worship. He's like, this is where the childcare goes sometimes. And so Graham, it's on our campaign. We're really grateful to have Graham. And so you can get information from Graham. And of course, our website has everything you probably need, including our policy. We welcome your feedback. It's Connie, Connie, Chan, CHANSF.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Supervisor
Happy
Chan.
Sunday. Thanks, Dad.
Okay, I'll just close with a couple of announcements. So at 12:30 today, here in this room, we'll be having our MLK tribute, talking about his labor involvement. And next Sunday forum, we have Frances Aubrey speaking, and she's written a book called A Grandmother's Wisdom, A Journey from Trauma to Wholeness. And then 2 weeks after that, we will have Katia Padilla, who's here today, and she's from the Latino Task Force, and she'll be speaking here at Forum, telling us about the good work that they do. And finally, one more announcement, which is on January 28th, that's a Wednesday, the Human Rights Working Group, and especially Bruce Newberger, have created an event to show solidarity with the protesters who are dying, sadly, in Iran. There'll be a vigil for that in the morning, and then a film here at 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, January 28th.